Welcome back to the Philly Roaming Podcast. My name is Dan.
And my name is Marlene.
So today we have a special interview to bring you guys. This is something that we've been wanting to do for a while, and this is the start of an interview series, even though we've done a couple of interviews in the past. But we are doing this in a more orderly fashion now. We have an episode that we just uploaded a week or 2 weeks ago that's more topic oriented. And the goal for this podcast going forward is that we're gonna have one episode that's about topics.
Yeah.
And then the next episode will be an interview with somebody who's either a full-time traveler, lives off the grid, or somebody that's kind of living this nomadic lifestyle that fits this kind of freely roaming concept that we promote on this channel.
Yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to hear other people's stories and how their life started on the road or interesting things that they do, and then mix it up with questions that we answer on the podcast. So it's not just us talking all the time.
Yeah, exactly. We want to bring more voices into this podcast than just ours. So this one's really special because this is friends of ours that we've known for a couple of years, and we first interacted with them only online for like 3-4 years. The initial interaction we had, surprisingly, it was about having cats on the road. And turns out we're experts on traveling with cats.
Accidental experts.
Yeah, so we, as you guys may know or may not know, are 16 years on the road. 14 of those have been with cats. So the first 10, we had our old cat with us. Maybe 10 or 11 year, we had our old cat Yoda with us. She passed away when we were in Belgium. She was 16 years old. And we had 2 years without. And then a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we picked up a couple of strays from Europe. So now they've been traveling with us. So this is our friends. You guys probably know who they are if you are active on the traveling nomadic overlanding YouTube community. It is MAK and Owen from Bound for Nowhere. They are an amazing couple, very creative.
Beautiful photos and videos, and they're so creative, and they're really humble and fun to hang out with and talk to.
We got to meet them for the first time in 2022 when we came back from Europe. Their journey started years before that. And the reason how we connected, like I said, is through a conversation we had about how to travel with cats. However, their content creation really started to blossom during sort of the COVID pandemic. And ironically, during the COVID pandemic, we were in Europe. And while we were in Europe, we were really feeling this longing for community. It's a couple of things. I think a lot of people had the same kind of feeling, which is, you had to socially distance, couldn't go places because if you're in Europe, like we were, borders were closed. If you're in America, you couldn't go into Canada, you couldn't go into a lot of countries by plane. So on top of that, we had been in Europe for 2.5 years at the time.
It just gets a little lonely being an international traveler when you're not in campgrounds or in popular areas where other tourists would be.
And the community there is a little different, right? The community there is more either retired people or young van life couples. There's not very many families. And how we used to travel in the US, we would meet up with people all the time. And back then it didn't matter if you were a family or if you were just a couple, if you're a single traveler or whatever combination you have. We met a lot of people, and it got to the point where we felt like there was like an overwhelming sort of hyper social feeling that we were like overindulging, that we had to like, reel back and find solitude and slow down. But we had the opposite of that. And
in Europe.
And during that time, we were sort of indulging on YouTube videos and trying to find other people that were traveling like this to sort of, give ourselves this little fix of the solitude that we felt when we were in Europe and we couldn't really go anywhere. So we came across a lot of their videos. I recognized them, I remember them, and then they were traveling with some friends. And in this podcast, we talk about a lot of that experience that they experienced. And it's fun for us too, because we kind of saw this from around the world, literally. Other side of the world, we were watching this happening. And since then, we've become friends. In 2022, we came back. We met them at Overland Expo West. And a lot of their friends, Chase and Amy, Limber and Carissa, we met them in person, become friends with them as well. So we wanted to bring them on as one of the early interview series podcast episodes to kind of have them talk about that experience. And also, I think a lot of people who follow them and watch their videos are also very interested in their creative process. And being creative people, we wanted to know, so we kind of dive into a little bit. So I feel like you guys are going to enjoy this, especially if you kind of have the same types of interest in creating content, in traveling, and also just diving deeper into somebody else's mindset when it comes to living this lifestyle. So it's kind of a long one. We talked to them for a little more than 2 hours. And I was only able to edit it down to like just under 2 hours because so much of the information there I think is really nice to hear. It was useful. So I hope you guys find it interesting. So if you guys are here watching this intro for this long, you know how long this video or this podcast is. So this is going to be an audio podcast on our podcast feed, as well as a YouTube video on our Freely Roaming Podcast YouTube channel. So buckle down, get a coffee, get something to drink, maybe get some popcorn. It's going to be a ride. So you guys will be here for a while. Hope you guys enjoy. And here's our conversation with the great MAK and Owen from Bound for Nowhere.
It's so nice to see you all. How are you doing?
Hi, we're good.
Good.
Hold on, Marlene can't hear yet.
I can't see and I can't hear, so...
Happy Valentine's Day, guys.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Will you be our Valentines today?
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
Hey, Owen.
Hello.
How are those eyes?
They're better. I can see you guys much more clear.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yay!
Still not 100%, but better.
What percent do you think you're at?
I would put it probably... Let me look around. I'd say 85%.
Okay,
Solid.
turn around and tell me the time from your TV.
Easy, 9:59.
Oh, wow, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Nailed it.
I will say yesterday I posted just like a little update on just like our YouTube community board or whatever. And just was like, hey, you know, our build series, we were hoping to have like roll out a lot sooner after the rig tour, but Owen had laser eye surgery. This is kind of his project that he's championing. And somebody said, they were like, if he had PPK, like tell him to be...
PRK.
Or yeah, PRK, tell him to be patient. He said it took him 3 months to get the vision that he felt like he was after.
Wow.
Post.
So 3 months for like
They said a
perfect
solid
vision.
3 months.
I've
And
got a
that's
3-month vacation.
Yeah.
I've heard that from multiple people too. So it sounds like that's...
How's it down in SoCal right now?
It's
Glorious.
fine. It's beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah?
it's beautiful. It's clearly been raining a lot here.
Yeah, it's green.
It's pretty green. I think that this spring is going to be ridiculous. But I will say that our allergies are already starting
Oh, yeah.
to ramp up, which means that things are blooming.
I used to have really, I don't know if I told you, I had really bad allergies for several years. Like to the point where every spring, between spring and early summer, like I would feel like that I wanted to claw my eyeballs out.
You had like
I'm
bumps
familiar
growing.
with these feelings.
Yeah, I mean, like, there was no reprieve. It was just constant, like, itch to the point where it was pain.
Yeah.
And literally, like, it messed with my mind. But for some reason, it went away. I never, like, I tried to go to an allergist. They did the little, like, prick test with, like, 100 different things. And they were just like, oh, you're allergic to everything. So I'm like, why do we just do this prick test? And the downside of that was that I had to be in LA for like 6 months or something.
Yeah, it's a whole process, the shots.
To go through the shots.
Oh.
So I just ended up not doing it.
Yeah, you're talking to a girl who, for her first 2 years of college, had 8 shots a week for her allergies.
Wow. So you had to do that.
Wow.
I did have to do it, and it was just like kind of demoralizing. It's like I am not even 20 years old, and I have to go into the doctor 3 times a week.
Yeah. And it wasn't even gonna work for me outside of Southern California, right? Because it's regional.
Right, because it's hyper local.
Yeah. So
I need
it
the
made
world
zero
to
sense.
Yeah.
This
So-
is actually pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? I don't know what happened. Like, first year in Europe, I still had it.
Yeah, the first.
Second year in Europe, just completely disappeared. Like, just
They say that every
Nothing.
7 years.
We missed Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
In the desert in Baja.
I was just telling Marlene the other day.
There's
Just
so many
telling Marlene
people
the other day,
out there.
So
Wouldn't it be so great to be in like BLM land in Arizona right now?
So is Central America not all it's cracked up to be?
Central America. Okay, so
It's been rough.
camping is tough,
Yeah.
right? Like,
sounds like it.
I can imagine people coming down here, living in an apartment or a house, and just loving it, right? Because you go inside when you want air conditioning, you go to the beach when you want the beach, and the water is always like basically body temperature, like
Wow.
Yeah.
80 degrees, 90 degrees, even sometimes if it's really hot.
Basically, we should have installed the AC in our van.
Yeah, I would for sure recommend an AC.
And have a way to hide the kids so they don't get charged.
Well, but even, yeah, I know. It's expensive for us to camp,
Yeah.
but I
So
don't
they
think
do
it's gonna-
charge by the child.
Well, they're adults, so 5 people. So it'd be $10 a person. Would be like $20, yeah, for a couple's fine, but $50 a
Yeah, a
night
night, that's
for
awful.
like a toilet. That's so scary.
I mean, they do some places, a lot of places let kids camp for free, but they have to be under 5.
Yeah.
Like,
So there's decidedly
it's been a
not
while. It's been a
children
while since they
anymore.
were under 5.
It's gonna be tough to convince people that Luke is 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
He's just really big for his age.
Yeah, exactly.
And sassy.
Yeah. He's really advanced. I don't know if you understand.
Yeah.
Mensa's very interested in him.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think you're kind of born with a high IQ, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if his IQ is getting any higher.
It's not linear with age.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's actually an inverse relationship with age. Okay.
All right, you guys get serious business now.
So
right.
we have.
We're in the business of being serious.
If you guys don't know who we're interviewing today, we have MAK and Owen from Bound for Nowhere. And you guys want to say hi? Introduce yourselves.
Hi. That's all you get. Hi. Thank you for having us. We're very appreciative. I'm MAK.
And I'm Owen.
People usually think that we're a gay couple, but we're not. Because you just assume MAK's a guy. Surprise.
Oh, you mean by the name?
Okay.
People always, when they're like, oh, our friends MAK and Owen are coming, they're always really sorely disappointed to find out we're not a gay couple.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I never thought about that
No.
before. Because I have a friend from college. Well, actually, she was a roommate. She went by MAK, but
Oh, so you know a lady
I know a
MAK.
Lady MAK. Yeah.
Nice.
Lady MAK sounds like a special at McDonald's in the summer.
The dainty MAK.
And Owen?
But I guess like we could, oh yeah, I guess you could also
Yeah.
introduce yourself, sorry.
I did introduce myself.
Tell me, like, maybe one sentence about you if you have to, if you had an elevator pitch about yourself, what would it sound like?
Ooh,
Mac's very good at this.
I'm out. This is
Oh,
all
yeah.
you.
All right. Well, Mac, Owen, we've been traveling for about 8 years now in North America primarily in various vehicles. Right now we're in a 4-wheel camper and Tundra, and we're photographers and filmmakers.
It's true. Guilty as charged. But yeah, we left Atlanta. I think that people are really often are surprised to hear that we left the South. We haven't really been back all that much since then. I think that Owen was born and raised in the South. I am from a military family, And I think that we just had this hunger to get to know, it started as just a hunger to get to know the country, just because it felt like as we were entering the working world, we just didn't really know what was going on out there. And we kind of wanted to find a new place to live. This is like right after college. We decided to hit the road, inspired by my parents who did a road trip post-college. And we just kind of realized that instead of one particular place, we just really like enjoyed the movement and being able to make the decision about where you wake up and go to bed every day. And that was our favorite part about it. And so we are now doing like a 2.0 version, because like we didn't really expect to fall in love with it and ultimately needed to find a way to make it sustainable. So that first road trip was in 2012. We hit the road again full time for this version, which is funny because like we're in a house right now. I'm sure we'll get to that, but
we're in a house too. Right?
Yeah, well, we're all just a bunch of posers.
That is the rumor for a lot of people, but I mean,
yeah, every once in a while, yeah, you got to honestly, winter on the road kind of sucks, and I'm sure we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
But we just were really stoked to get on the road full time, and we finally did that in April 19th, 2016 is when we hit the road full time. Been moving around ever since.
So we did a bit of a deep dive yesterday on your YouTube channel.
Oh no!
Did you see an uptick on your watch hours?
You have probably a solid 4-cent gain on your revenue from what we did yesterday.
Thanks, guys. Really supporting us. I appreciate it.
If you go on that geographic chart, you'll see Costa Rica.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
Yeah.
Yeah, Costa Rica loves us. Really and truly, it's just Dan and Marlene.
But it's everybody from everywhere in Costa Rica. It's like, well, okay. We've driven to a few places around here.
Yeah.
So when we were doing this deep dive, we went all the way back to the first video, right? Which is the Vanagon tour. Was that the actual first video, or were there older videos that are no longer there?
That's it.
Yeah. We were shooting video with no real purpose.
Yeah.
You did have a purpose. You were Owen was trying to do like a video, and it was he wanted to do a second of footage from every single day for a year, and I think he made it about 6 months. Mm-hmm. And what he put together was amazing. So we were shooting a little bit of footage. The thing is, we just didn't really have cameras. I don't know. Owen and I have always just been originally we're photo focused. We both went to college thinking that we were going to get degrees in photography. Neither one of us ended up with a degree in photography, but so our connection to that world started in photo, and it's just kind of been a little bit of a slow adoption on the video side of things.
So what was that video shot on? Do you remember?
Was it your camera
I think it was shot on the A6300.
Okay, because I thought I saw a glimpse of a APS-C Sony in one of the shots.
Oh,
it was
reflection?
two cameras inside or going into the Vanagon Life center console.
Right. Okay. So then, if you saw the APS-C, then it would have been an A7R1.
Oh, the original A7R.
Yeah, I feel like that camera actually really helped Owen and I fall back in love with digital photography. I think that, so Owen and I feel like, we're among camera loving friends here. So I think that this is kind of a funny story. Owen and we were prepping to go on the road. I was shooting Nikon, he was shooting Canon, and we just could not get on the same page about what we were going to do. And we clearly couldn't take two camera systems. Like you saw, our center console was so small, that was our space to put expensive things. And so we were like, okay, well, we're just going to scrap everything and just go to Sony.
Right.
At the time,
Nobody can win.
Yeah, no compromise.
No,
it's just
you
musing.
We're both going to lose.
Yeah, full compromise, which ended up actually being great. But their camera bodies were very small at the time. And so it was kind of a nice refresh, but it felt like those cameras because we got an A6300 and the A7R1. And those cameras like really did help us fall back in love with, because I think that there was a distinct period of time where we weren't really shooting very much
Was
anymore.
that was 2016 when that was
Yeah, I
shot?
think we got the cameras in 2015 just in preparation, but yeah.
Because we wanted to have something nice to capture our travels. And I feel like obviously if you're seeing something new and interesting every day, it's very easy and organic to pick up a camera to capture it. And I feel like that organic relationship of having a camera in hand has ultimately led us to where we are now.
So have you guys already been? I mean, it's far easier to scroll through YouTube than Instagram, but had you guys already been sharing on Instagram for a while before that?
So we just turned my Instagram account into the Bound for Nowhere one because I just pretty organically, and it was really interesting because Owen and I, we made this decision to get back on the road based off of a previous experience. We made the decision to get a van again because we're kind of like hopeless romantics in a lot of ways. And it just felt like the natural choice for an excursion that we were going to be undertaking. And we just kind of were documenting the process more so for our families because everybody knew that that's what we were working to. When I say everybody, like our friends and family knew that that's what we were working towards. And so we were just kind of sharing the process, and all of these like random people were coming out of the woodworks and they're like, oh, this is so cool. And then kind of just organically, we realized that van life was a thing. It wasn't like, that's not why we were doing it. We were just like, this is what we're doing. And then we realized it was kind of a thing that was starting to happen. And it was a pretty organic, I guess, like growth from there as people started to catch on to the fact that we were preparing to hit the road full time.
So was the Instagram growth during the Vanagon days? Not it hasn't grown since then, but the initial growth.
Yeah, I think so. I think that I always kind of realized that it was something that people were intrigued by. Because like I said, very early on, I was like, I don't know who these people are, but they're pretty intrigued by this process. And I really enjoyed sharing it. And I also just through sharing our own experience, just kind of realized how empowering it is if you see other people making radical changes to their life that is like helping them follow a passion. You know, I think that people really enjoy seeing that because I think that ultimately that's what we're all after, is living a life that's of our own creation, no matter what that looks like. Because I don't think that the road is for everybody, but I think that there's a lot of lessons that can be pulled about the tenacity required to follow your own path. And so to me, it was like really important to share that because I realized how much other people were getting out of it. And it made what we were doing feel, frankly, less selfish. Because I think that to cut ties with all the relationships and the community that you have in one place to ultimately decide to be residents of nowhere, you know, you stop losing access to like a place where people can come visit you. There was an element that felt very selfish to me about hitting the road. And I think that sharing that process and realizing that people got something out of it took the edge off of that for me personally.
Was there, for a lot of people that we've met who have chosen to live full-time on the road, there's usually a memorable moment that they can trace it back to that was maybe not the only reason, but one of the big reasons why they decided this was the time to do it. Did you guys have something like that? Or was it just a cumulative effect of a bunch of different things?
I don't think that there was anything that necessarily triggered when, but why, definitely. There was a time in 2012 when we were on that initial road trip when we hit the Badlands, and being out in the Badlands was kind of the first time where we felt like we were far away from home. But leading up to that point, we were kind of all in areas where there were people. You know, we hadn't really like gotten way out there.
Some
so to
sense of
speak.
familiarity for the whole time leading up.
And so that was kind of the first time where we had this feeling of being far away from home, being way out there, in a wild place. I think we had pulled up, it was sunset, and there were a bunch of bighorn sheep out in the meadow grazing, and then there were the Badlands in the background. Very majestic.
Wildly majestic.
And
I think we talked about this at some point,
probably.
because I think we were in the Badlands too in 2012.
Oh, no way.
Oh my God.
Because we drove across
Mississippi?
South Dakota and we ended up in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
Yes.
it's not like it's a small place.
Yeah, it's a feeling that you never forget. And it's interesting because I was talking to somebody about this recently, just a couple days ago, and it's a feeling that you only have to feel once to know that that is out there waiting for you elsewhere in the world. And I think it's like a little bit addicting, that feeling.
So was it for both of you? Did you guys both feel that when you were there?
Yeah, it was, I would say, a life-changing experience.
It was definitely an aha moment. And I think that, like Max said, is kind of that feeling kind of kicked off this whole idea of kind of like always wanting to be put in a similar state of mind.
Because I think that it just feels like every, like, life and your memories, everything is so rich. And I think that the stark contrast was, you know, we ran out of money on that trip and we had to end it sooner than we wanted to. Granted, we made it 6 months, so we did just fine. But to like come off the road, it was not like our own desire. So like against our will. And then to insto facto find yourself a couple months later sitting in a desk job that you don't love, working for people you also don't particularly care for. It just was like
Hopefully
this
they're not listening.
radical, it was just this radical contrast. And it's just like, I know that exists out there. Why would I ever submit to this if I know that I can live every day? Theoretically speaking, I can live every day like that.
Right.
So I think that we just had to experience that. And I think that it was also important for us to experience the direct contrast of that, to really like light a fire in us to make big changes. Because it's still, from the day that we made the decision to get back on the road again, it took 2.5 years. Like it's not, we're doing this thing and we're leaving tomorrow. You know, there's so much. We had a house, we had desk jobs, our careers had to change. We needed to purchase a vehicle. The vehicle needed to be ready. There's just so much that prepping and planning, because we just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to come off the road against our will again, because like we had already done that. We knew how awful that was. And it was important to us that we made an effort to ensure that we were doing things under our own steam going
So
forward.
that was, you guys were in like a small SUV or something, right?
Element.
Honda
Honda
Element
Element
in a tent.
and a tent. Oh, so you didn't
6
sleep
months.
inside the Element.
6 months in a tent.
At
was
one
great.
point, we had our friend with us.
So there was
We're
3 of
three.
us living out of a Honda Element.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
There's a Honda Element like scene. Honda
Oh, yeah.
Element is like a full on
love-
like micro camper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
thing.
It's kind
they
of a
make
cult.
pop tops for them. They cut
They
the
make
roof.
pop tops. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a
Sorry,
cult
I'm gonna
favorite.
eye drop.
This is our life these days. One eye drop to the next. But yeah, and something else actually really interesting happened the next day after we had that feeling in the Badlands. The campground that we went to, it was like one of the it's kind of at the end of the park, and it's this loop, and it's down in a depression, and all of the campsites are just like around this big loop. And the tent site, or the site next to us, a guy had a Volkswagen van again with a pop top. We had seen them before, but like had never seen one up close and personal. And this crazy storm was coming in the next day, and he's like, "Oh, do you like want to have beers in my van? Like we can get out of this crazy weather." And we were sitting in his van the next day, and we were just like, this is how you hit the road, and you can do it full time. Like this is not much bigger than our Element, but the space was was great. You had a kitchen, you had a way to store water, a sink. It was just like, okay, so like the light bulb went off yesterday and now we're making the connection so quickly, like that this is what we could do it in. The seed was planted almost immediately after, but I think that, yeah, you have to like get away from those moments to have the contrast to like realize that you need to get back to it.
Like so many things could have happened for things to go. This is what I think about all the time. There just needs to be like one tiny difference in your life for your life to be going a whole different direction. Like that guy could have camped somewhere else. He could have left a day early. That rainstorm wouldn't have come.
Yeah.
He would have been broken down, and you would have known the reliability of Vanagon's was not going to work
Wow,
out.
Dan, wow.
Right? Because all those pluses that were coming into your head were all about how great it is to have this indoor living space.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, because the contrast was that night we crawled into our tent. That storm absolutely pummeled us, and Owen and I spent the entire night holding the walls of our tent up.
And I'm sure that Honda Element is still on the road, has never had an oil change, and is still charging.
Still trucking.
Yeah, my sister actually used it for years and years.
Just sold it
afterwards,
like
just
2 years,
sold
a
it
year and a half ago or
year
something.
Oh,
ago.
wow. Really? It was... No, that's crazy.
And it went to a guy who races in rallies in Honda Elements. Like that's his
a
car
thing?
choice.
I think it's like a Honda Element thing. Like obviously it would lose to any
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Right.
Only Honda
It's a
Elements.
one class race. Wow. Yeah, so I think at the time too, I think Vanagons were very, very popular. Like I think you guys had a Descend on Bend sticker, right? Because you guys went to a Descend on Bend? Or did you guys go?
We did.
We went to the first one that we went to, I think was Descend on Bend
Trace.
Tres.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that relatively early on, but I feel like we got our van like just before they started to get really popular.
Yeah, because I think Descend on Bend 3 was 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably got a better deal on it too before it got
before
too
We
crazy.
paid $7,000 for ours,
Yeah.
which I feel like is pretty unheard of these days. And it was in good condition.
It didn't start when we went to go pick it up.
It was in good condition.
I hope you asked for a
otherwise.
discount.
I mean, were you expecting it to, though?
I mean, we drove it around the first time, and then we just were like, okay, we'll go get a check.
And then we came
the
back
next day we
and
came back and it didn't start,
yeah,
and then
wow.
we had to go, leave again, and then he fixed it, and then we came back and got it.
Well, and here's this is just to encapsulate Vanagon ownership. I wanted to drive it to work after we purchased it because I was like, I want that daily reminder that this is where life is headed. Like, no matter what happens in this building, like this is my exit strategy. It's only a matter of time. And
So you had it for a while when you were still working.
we had it for about a year and a half before, about a year before leaving. And I wanted to drive it to work. Granted, we lived and worked 5 to 7 minutes apart from like our house where we worked. And Owen was like, you can't drive it until it has had, I think you said 20 unfailed starts. I was able to drive it to work once.
It reminded me of like the accident chart. Like, when was the last day our company
yeah,
had an
right.
accident?
Zero
Yeah, no.
OSHA.
incident.
Try again.
Yeah, OSHA's showing up.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, theoretically speaking, clearly we didn't read the signs.
Yeah.
So do you think of that Vanagon era? Like, I would assume you have fond memories, right? Because that's sort of the beginning of your second start. And how long did that last?
I think so. It's kind of weird. I think that
Depends on who you talk to.
I think there was just as much time before the trip with the van as there was during the trip with the van, because there was so much time getting it to a place where we thought it would be good to go.
Reliable.
And then So like we probably had a year and a half before we left, and then we probably made it a year and a half before we were like, this thing sucks and we need to go somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah,
The value's been going up on these things. That's
Right.
I think
know,
that
we dropped a fortune into that van.
yeah, we lost like a terrifying amount of money on that van. And really and truly, at the end of the day, that's fine. That's like not a problem. There are endless lessons that were like learned from it. I will say I had more sentimental like love wrapped up in that vehicle, because to me, like, despite the fact that Owen and I had purchased a house, it just felt like the first home that he and I like really built together, but we're also like living the life it felt like we were meant to be living in it. Like, it just felt like we had finally gotten to the place that we were meant to be. But like now that time has passed, it just is like, it wasn't, you know, it was a first attempt of ultimately many to get it right. And, you know, we missed the mark pretty heavily, but it got us out there. It instilled a lot of tenacity in us because so much went wrong. But every time something went wrong in that vehicle, we just like doubled down. And I think that kind of thing can scare people off of the road, ultimately, like causing them to leave the road. Owen and I, that van cost us so much money in breakdowns in that first year and a half that we were in it, that like we almost had to come off the road again because it just like bled us dry financially. But like we still were just like, no, like this is what we're meant to be doing. Like we have to figure this out. And I think that learning those lessons early on instilled a sense of resiliency in us that ultimately has kept us out here for all of these years. So again, like you said, like it's hard to say that I wish that things had gone any other way, because I don't know that we would be here right now if things were easy and it felt like we were able to just like hit the ground running and traveling without any challenges, because I think that Owen and I, to a certain degree, like a challenge.
well, and also I'm sure now the challenges don't feel as serious, right? The challenges nowadays are, you know, you feel like, okay, we've gotten through worse things before,
Right.
right?
And
'Cause
it's a very different type of challenge now
Yeah.
because it's not car breakdowns anymore. Because
yeah,
like ultimately, we learned a lot about being mechanics by necessity with the van, but that's not what I want to do. That's not what I want to use my brain space for. I don't care like what's driving the vehicle. I care where the vehicle is taking me. So I'm happy to have that stage behind us. And so now the problems and challenges we face are a lot more exciting and less.
They're somewhat self-inflicted these days as well.
And those are the kind of challenges that I'm more excited to tackle.
Exactly.
we'll talk about those self-inflicting challenges later. But let's talk about when you decided to sell the van again and you moved on. Is that when you moved on to the Sunraider? Were you looking for something more capable? Were you looking specifically Toyotas, or have you guys have been on a Toyota platform ever since?
Since then, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a beast of my own creation, the Sunraider. I really fell
Self-inflicted wound?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was really searching around for a while because I had come to the realization that the van was just not going to be a long-term solution for us. And so I was all over the internet looking at cool old vehicles that also had 4x4.
Because again, we still love
Yeah,
problems.
you love the vintage vibe.
Exactly.
Still love a challenge.
And I fell in love with the Sunraider.
Yeah.
It was
Sunraiders are very cool.
so cool. And I thought that this was going to be perfect. It was 4x4. It was a Toyota. All of these things.
He comes from a Toyota family, by the way.
And
Okay.
I had like all of these like automated like search things to send me notifications as soon as one came up for sale.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're
They're-
not
they're
easy to
rare.
find.
No.
They're
I think
super
that they
rare.
made like right around 30 of them.
In 4x4 specifically. And that was
Okay,
what we
right? Because
And-
there's probably others that have been converted since.
Correct.
Right.
but it's a pretty rare bird, and some of them, don't exist anymore because they crashed or whatever.
Well,
And so
there was also a recall because of a catastrophic
it
error.
didn't affect the 4x4 ones. Any of the 18-foot ones, it did not apply to.
Oh, okay.
So we came out of Canada for, I don't know, we were in Canada for a few weeks, maybe a month, and we didn't have internet when we were in Canada because our cell phone plan didn't work. And so we came back into the United States, and all of a sudden boom,
One hit.
there was one. And Mac flew out to Montana
The next day.
and
Yeah,
snagged
I
it.
remember it had Montana plates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was how we ended up with the Sun Raider. I thought that it was going to be perfect, and
So
ultimately
you guys committed sight unseen.
Yeah, we talked to them on the phone. We kind of think them what we were doing, and I think that ultimately they decided to sell it to us because we had intentions of
Yeah.
breathing new life into it. I think it was only the second owners of it, and I think it was important to them that it went on to somebody who was going to care for it because they knew that it was rare. So I flew out and I picked it up. I drove it back. And we needed to get it back across. So Owen was in Portland. We had to get it across the country because we were going to do the build at my parents' house in Florida. And
You're in Portland, Maine, or Oregon?
Oregon.
Okay, so you're going the other way.
Definitely.
You're going opposite way.
So yeah, we had to go that way to pick up Owen and the van because then we were going to drive them both back across the country.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you went to Canada on the west coast.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
You flew
so
to Montana from Oregon.
yeah.
Got it.
we left our van because the van was going to get shipped back to Florida. And Owen and I think we were in Wyoming and the transmission went out in the Sun Raider. So we hadn't made it very far. So it was kind of like the of things to come. Ultimately, it took us 9 months to build out.
So this is kind of I'm piecing it together in my mind from our deep dive yesterday. So you were in Canada, and that's when you guys have your Oh Canada video, which is the second video, right?
Yes.
Wow,
Surfing
you-
at
you've done your
Tofino.
Yes.
Okay, so now the the chronology
Yeah,
is making sense to me.
Exactly. You can see that cinematography.
Actually, I think that what we did was we came back and filmed that tour in Portland because we knew that we were heading in the direction of getting rid of it. And I think that we wanted to have it documented for what it was for us. But, it would be a tool that would ultimately be used to sell it.
Yeah, we actually, the thought process was when we got the Sun Raider, we knew we were going to renovate the entire thing. And we knew that that was what we wanted to film. And so we were like, oh,
This is good practice.
Well, if we film a tour of the van again, it'll be the first video on our channel and kind of give us some traction for when we start to upload all of these renovations.
Yeah. So ultimately, the Sun Raider build, it was a long process. We were estimating it would take us 2 months. It ultimately took us 9. We were living with my parents. It just over the course of that period of time, I think that it felt like we had completely lost track of why we were on the road at all. Because we had been off of it for so long trying to build this vehicle. And I think that we arrived at the end of the build just exhausted and frankly, I'm going to say uninspired. And we tried to leave. We were like, okay, we're done. We left. The wheel fell off on the highway, 45 minutes north of Orlando. So we had only been on the road 45 minutes in this thing after the build, and the wheel fell off. It destroyed a fender. It was this whole ordeal. And I felt at that moment, Owen and I kind of came to the realization, we did give it one more try to leave in it, but it just felt like we had already had the entire relationship with this vehicle. Our relationship with it had already run its course at that period of time. And I think that kind of 4x4 is ultimately slightly cosmetic. It's just not, it wasn't as capable as what we were expecting it to be. We had made this big, beautiful thing. but like it wasn't as capable. It was slow. It just like, it was so clear that we were going to be right back into a needy vehicle, that it was just like, how did we come this far and not realize this?
Yeah.
So that's when you fell out of love with vintage vehicles. For a full-time living platform, that is, right?
Here's the problem. We still have that affliction, but we just have come to realize that we can't live out of them.
I mean, I get it. You know, we came to this conclusion early on ourselves. I'm a Volkswagen guy going pretty far back. I've had a couple of split-window buses from the 60s. And my last one was sold maybe a year or two before we went on the road. I just knew that was not going to work. Even though we didn't have kids at the time when I sold it. And again, had I decided that this was the vehicle that we're going to flip and turn into a camper, then we would have been Volkswagen people, and then maybe we may not have had kids as early or as many. And maybe we just be like hippies on the road still, and not Volkswagen.
See,
right?
these
change.
divergent pathways. You never know where they're gonna.
It's the multiverse theory.
Yeah, I was gonna say
right? There's a Dan in some universe somewhere who's got dreadlocks and a hippie driving that Volkswagen.
I can
still.
see it. I love it.
I mean, I really love the image of the 5 of you plus the 2 cats with like hands out the window of a split window bus driving down some dirt road.
It would be cute. I could see it.
Yeah, they would go like 4 miles an hour.
We're so heavy.
Yeah. But I feel so. I guess like to bring this all semi full circle. I think that you live and you learn, and I think that after hitting the road for the last time in the Sunrider and being like, this isn't it. We just went back. We were like, we just have to go back to our roots. And we bought at the point where we decided to turn around and come back to Florida to sell the Sunrider, we got on Craigslist that morning. We found a great deal on a Tacoma with a bed cap. It was a 2008, relatively low miles, really well maintained. And we were just like, let's just cut it all the way back to the basics. Let's just go all the way back. Let's just make sure that we still want to be on the road. Let's go try to do this trip up into northeastern Canada and try to get reacquainted with what it is that we're even doing out here. And I think that period was really necessary for us because it gave us the opportunity to like put some miles between kind of a tumultuous 9 months, fall back in love with being on the road, realize how much of the world is still out there that we want to see, and like what we're willing to do to see it. And I think that was when we started being like, okay, now that we know that we don't want to be building ourselves, like what are our options? Owen had always wanted a 4-wheel camper. And so on our way up in the Tacoma, we stopped at Mainline Overland and we took a look at 4-wheel campers. And I also think that, it's a big, expensive vehicle. And for us, like we were in our 20s, I just like never really felt comfortable committing that kind of money to a vehicle and committing that kind of money towards like a home that we can have on the road of that size and capacity. And I think that all of those other experiences kind of galvanize that this is what we want. It's okay to spend this kind of money because, we're not paying a mortgage, we're not renting. Like, I'm willing to invest in our life and I'm willing to do it this way. And so it was amazing. Owen and I were able to travel full time for 9 months in the Tacoma. We made it all the way up to the Trans-Labrador Highway. And we were able to travel until the day that our new rig was ready. And I think that was also a really refreshing thing to like realize that we could still be living the way that we wanted to while our next phase was being built, and that we didn't have to be the ones, and that there's actually people who are way more experienced.
You're right in your eye.
There you go. It recognizes that thumbs up.
But we watched your video on that yesterday, and we really liked it. And it was like, we had a similar feeling. So when you guys described that like life-changing trip,
Yeah.
Yours was into Canada, and we had a similar one in Alaska in 2015. And we also switched to a four-wheel after that trip. So it was just like, it was just so
There
funny.
they are, always to pick us up.
I mean,
Yeah,
the difference is you guys had, you
tumultuous,
already
but-
knew you wanted that before you went into Canada, right? Because you were in the
Right.
Tacoma on your way north.
Yes.
So while you were in Canada, this thing was already ordered and being built. Did you guys
We-
buy from
we-
Mainline?
Yeah. We placed our order the day that we took the ferry to Newfoundland. It was the last thing that we did. We placed our order for a camper, and then we took the ferry to Newfoundland, and it just felt like this like call to arms, like this recommitment in what we were doing. And I feel like knowing that something else was in the works while having this like really big, profound experience in a place that we had never been before. Yeah, I don't know. I think that we've been riding that high ever since, literally.
So we were with you guys in Baja
Yeah.
eating tacos at Los Cerritos. What's the taco place? Barracuda?
Barracuda.
Yeah, that's
Barracuda.
right. That's right.
When this woman came to you and said something like, my
I was
dad
going to
bought
ask if you remember this.
the truck, right?
The Sunraider.
No,
Who was it?
That was the daughter of the family that we purchased the Sunraider from.
Oh, you bought it from them.
I bought it from her parents,
Okay.
and she and her husband honeymooned in the Sunraider, and it was the last big trip for the Sunraider before it was sold to
Oh,
us.
wow.
Okay.
All that carpet.
So much carpet.
I love that part of your video.
And I think that there was so much, like we're really proud of what we did with the Sunraider. I do understand that there's purists out there because they make themselves very known in the comments of our videos that we completely ruined this
Yeah.
vehicle.
They're
like-
out there. There's not that many. They're just very loud, right?
They're just very loud.
That's what happens.
And like ultimately at the end of the day, I understand to each their own. It's a very different perspective and none of it is right or wrong. But I think that it made me so happy that they felt like we had done right by the vehicle. Because I think that, I don't know, like I really cared for her parents. They were very kind people. They made me lunch. Like I hung out for the day before I ultimately left. Like the sale was like wham bam, thank you ma'am, like right after I arrived. And they ended up just like spending the day with them. And it was really important to us that we felt like we had done right by them. And it it was crazy. That's like a long lead time to get that validation.
yeah, right.
That the family was actually, they had sent us an email a couple years prior, so I had heard from them, but to like see her in person and to like see her so excitedly talk about like what we had done to the Sunraider made me really happy. And it's also really great because it's in a second set of hands after ours, the Sunraider. I've actually been a
So you're
part of
keeping
the
track of
sale
it.
again. We actually know where almost all of our vehicles are to this day.
The
But it
Tacoma?
just like it makes me happy to know that we gave it another life and that it's still out there traveling with another family. And I think that is so cool. I think
Yeah.
that is amazing. Like that piece of like automotive history is still out on the road doing what it was meant to do.
Probably the same 22R engine.
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, there's a reason why some cars are rare. It's because they were not very popular or work very well. That's why
Right.
the manufacturer didn't make that many. Right? Because
Yeah.
the most popular...
4x4 for their RV.
Yeah, I mean, especially back in 1985, right?
Yeah, that's a newer thing for sure.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of, love for vintage vehicles and a love for people who collect. And there's a lot of people that like rare vehicles, but they all have to know that there's a reason why it's rare. And if you're going to use a rare vehicle for a thing that it was maybe not designed for, there's going to be some pangs down the line.
Yeah. And I think it's also funny that we were together too, as we were kind of in the final stages of planning our current build, which, had its own roller coaster of emotions. But But yeah, there's no, I guess like the moral of the story that like whenever people ask, like there's no perfect rig.
Yeah.
There's only a rig that's good. It's good for now, but
Yeah.
that's why we've like never really wrapped our identity in our vehicles, just because your needs change. And so
Yeah.
your tools have to change, just depending on like where you are in life and what your goals are. And, but yeah, we have exactly what we need for ourselves right now and our current plans. And that is a really good feeling.
What was harder to watch drive away? The Sunraider or Roxanne?
Roxanne, I think that I was I was happy to see the Sunraider go. Because again, it just felt like we had our entire relationship already
Right.
with that vehicle.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you
felt
weren't
like-
living in it for very long, so there was no
Yeah.
emotional attachment.
Yeah, and I think that the emotional attachment has lessened. Like I'm past having emotional attachments to vehicles at this
Right.
point.
Now you're
Yeah,
just
but
a dark black hole.
I think though that with Roxanne, that was just difficult because the thing was at the end of the day, we loved everything about that truck.
Yeah.
I think that it served such a good purpose. It still had so much life in it, but there was like so many complex reasons why we needed to build a new one. That it was just hard to see it go because it felt like we could have kept going for a long time in it. There was nothing that we didn't like about it, essentially. So it was more, it was a financial decision. It was a decision in preparation for our international travels. There's been a lot of technological advances that have happened since then in like power and battery capacity. And it just felt like it would have been a disservice to that vehicle to dive in and try to do all of that stuff by retrofitting rather than just starting over from scratch, because the thing is, not everybody needs the amount of power that we need. So like that vehicle is still like perfect for people who don't work as much as we do. So
What about, okay, so if we go from the top, Stanley is the name of the van again.
it was the van.
Was that, you mentioned, I think, in one of your videos that one of your vehicles was named after a cat?
That was
Stanley was the cat?
Our
Stan-
dead cat Stanley.
It is funny. It is funny, but like Stanley was. So we had Stanley and Luna at the time. We had two cats,
Okay.
and we were preparing to go on the road. Luna was very clearly not cut out for it, and so we had made arrangements for Luna to stay back. But Stanley was just the chillest. Like, as long as he was with his people, like, he didn't care that the van was loud. He didn't care that, like, he just wanted to be with us. And so we had made the decision to bring Stanley with us. And ultimately, he passed away before we hit the road. He was a shelter cat. He was found behind a liquor store in Kansas before a snowstorm. He had clearly been abandoned by another family. He had a collar. And we just like didn't really know where he was in his life. There had been some gross underestimates of how old he was. And ultimately he was way older than we thought him to be. So unfortunately he just, he passed before we got the chance to leave. So it felt like in spirit, he still had to come with us. So we named our van Stanley.
But you
And
had,
honestly, the perfect name for that van.
did you guys have Stanley during the Honda Element trip?
Yeah, so both of our cats stayed back with a friend in Atlanta. He very kindly
Okay.
took
And
care of the
then
cats we were gone.
the Sunraider was called Amelia.
After Amelia Earhart.
Okay. And then any other stories besides? I mean, I know that all your truck campers have been named after like
Everybody,
female
yeah. Power.
But then-
We like powerful women.
powerful women, right?
I think that.
But they just found her
Stanley-
airplane, apparently.
What? Okay, that's another. Sorry,
Okay.
we can get into that later. But that's
Yeah.
exciting news. Yeah, I think that after Stanley was obviously the most sentimental, we decided to name our Tacoma was Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, what's the story behind that?
I have no idea. I actually think that was my mom's idea, but she was like Lando because like we're in Orlando, and we're like, no, Lando Calrissian.
Okay. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
but anyways, I think that one was obviously like not sentimental, not powerful women. But I think that we get badass lady vibes from our rigs typically. So
And it went
It's just-
went on a musical turn after
yeah, well,
after
I
Roseanne.
actually wanted to name Roxanne Jolene, but it was Owen's turn to name a rig.
Ah.
So then it was my turn. I just feel like Jolene is just, I'm glad that ultimately we saved, that name was saved because I think that it's pretty perfect for our current. Because like I always joke, because like everybody asks about that truck. So, if you're not careful, she'll steal your man. So.
Oh, you
That's
look
the
like
history
you're
of all
gonna
the
say something.
rigs.
No, I love that the new rig has a little ode to the Sun Raider color graphics that you put on.
Yeah, it just felt like the rig that we never. It felt like maybe it was just a swing and a miss, but we loved everything about that vehicle from an aesthetic standpoint, and it just felt like this was the perfect opportunity to pay homage to something that we had such high hopes for. And like ultimately, I think that this version is what we were looking for back then. It just took us a little longer to find it.
And I had always assumed, until I watched your video yesterday, that the decal on Amelia was already there. But no, you guys designed and put that on that vehicle too.
It was just in grayscale, and then we
Okay, so you
altered
added
the design a little
vintage
bit.
colors.
Right.
Was it in grayscale? Or was this so faded that it used to be in color?
No, it was actually
Yeah, I'm not sure the reasoning, but they did both. They did grayscale and they did the sunset stripes, and I have no idea why some got the gray and some got the colors.
yeah.
But we were obviously very jealous of the people that had the color
Right.
ones. When
Well,
we
some
had the
people who bought them were big bummers that didn't want colors, and the people who were cool
we were
wanted the
just like-
colors.
Gray is just so boring. So since we had to take it off anyways to repaint, we're like,
Yeah.
well,
And I was really surprised because when I saw you like scrubbing the adhesives off, that tells me, wow, they didn't have to repaint this, and the paint looked great.
We did repaint it.
Oh, you
just
did?
the camper body, not the body of the
Yeah,
truck.
yeah,
Okay,
the truck
yeah.
itself was in incredible condition.
Yeah, because I remember you scraping the decals off.
Yeah,
before
I
you put the
was.
new one
I had kind of fielded the idea of painting. I thought it would be cool to paint the cab of the truck a color and then have the camper be white. But like ultimately, like once we got to that phase, we were just like, I swear to God, if something else goes onto the to-do list for this vehicle, like we might die and never get back on the road. So it's just like we just need to get moving.
Yeah, and I remember the video in it where you talked about Owen having to run across the highway to get the tire, and then
Did I include that
guy?
the police stopped because they thought that
that was in the video that
we
Owen
were
was,
having a
Owen
domestic
was
dispute?
being violent.
Yeah.
Well, he was just like, I was on my I was like curled up somewhat on the ground, sobbing over the broken pieces of the fender that I had so
Yeah, right.
carefully painted and re-put on, and it was just shattered into a ton of pieces. And so I was kind of like clutching the broken pieces like on the ground, and Owen was just like, because like he was obviously going through the exact same thing that I was, and just like didn't really even know what to like do or say. But apparently it read as a domestic dispute from passing cars.
Wow.
But ultimately, because we called AAA, we had AAA. This isn't going to look great for them. They did not come. They refused to come because we hadn't updated what our vehicle was from the van to this,
And it needed to be RV.
and it
Yeah.
needed to be an RV policy.
I've heard that before from other people.
Yeah, and so they didn't come, but we had, when the wheel came off, the rotor landed on the pavement and was ground down all the way to the studs. And because it was so close to the ground, we couldn't even get our lift underneath, like our jack underneath it at all. And so we were just like, do we live here now? Do we just like live on the side of the highway? Like what is even going on? And thankfully an off-duty roadside assistance guy who was going the other way, got off at the exit, flipped around and came and found us. And out of the kindness of his heart, helped us. And he was like, "Don't tell anybody I did this for you." And I was just like, "You have
Now
no."
you're telling somebody.
Yeah.
He doesn't know who he.
Actually, no, that was in your
naming
video.
names. I'm not naming companies, but I was just like, truly, I don't know what we would have done
Yeah.
if he wouldn't have pulled over, because
Well,
he was
you
able
would
to
use
pull
those
studs off
giant
other
quads
tires.
to lift the corner up.
Right.
Yeah, I shudder to think what would have happened, because my parents were out of town, so there was nobody who could have like come out to help us. It was,
It would have just been a lot harder.
yeah.
It would have taken
Yeah.
more.
You have to
It would
make a
have cost
sign,
money.
stand on the
Yeah.
side of the road.
A stellar example of like just kindness from a stranger.
I mean, the failure of the wheel studs was just coincidental, right? Because it could not have failed or not
No.
failed equally. I mean,
our
that's
lug
not part
nuts
of
were
the.
tightened back on
Right.
after leaving the shop that last
But I mean,
time.
that's not because of a defect in the axle,
No,
right?
that was just something else entirely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was certainly a traumatic experience, but again, hard to say that I'm not thankful for those experiences, because
Yeah.
ultimately it's led us to where we are now.
Well, I mean, because were you already thinking at the time that this is not the right vehicle? Because even after that incident, you continued to think something's not right.
Right. I think there was a little bit of PTSD, and so we were always on edge with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it was just like the feeling right before the wheel came off, because like I was like, do you feel that? Like something is not right. And I think that feeling and seeing what happened, because like the thing is, we were going 75 miles an hour.
No, we were not. That car couldn't go 75
Okay.
miles per hour.
That's right. Sorry. I'm used to having a Tundra because like
Kilometers. She meant kilometers.
Yeah. Kilometers
We
an
were
hour.
going maybe 55, 60.
But
We
we-
were on the interstate. It's a
Yeah.
4-lane highway.
Like
We
we
were-
could have rolled.
Yeah.
Truly. We could have
Yeah.
rolled. The tire could have hit somebody.
Yeah, we could have caused a horrible accident, but luckily no one was around us, because the wheel went all the way from the right side across the highway into the median. And luckily no one was around. So
Yeah,
we
it
got
just-
really lucky.
It just felt really yeah, I don't know. It just like instilled a fear of that vehicle in us that I don't know that we would have ever gotten over. And it was really interesting because when the new owners flew in from Vancouver, Canada, actually, to test drive the Sunraider, we were very honest with them. We were like, all of this stuff has happened. We've changed all of these parts. It doesn't feel stable to us anymore. We're like,
And the
just so you
video
know,
of the incident is not uploaded yet when they bought it. Was it?
I doubt it. But we told them everything. So we were just
yeah.
like, you all take it out all day. Go do stuff in it.
Yeah.
Then make the decision on if you're going to buy it. Because, like, I want to make sure that, yeah, see? I want to make sure you feel comfortable in it before you purchase this from us. And they were like, yeah, like, we can see what you're saying, but, like, it doesn't feel that scary. And I think that that's when Owen and I were like, oh, I
Yeah.
think that we just have PTSD.
You have PTSD
Like,
from
and
it.
we're never going to be able to get over it.
Right.
Unfortunately.
You needed, some fresh minds behind it wouldn't feel the same way.
Yeah. They hadn't been through everything.
But,
that we had
I
been
mean,
through.
you guys so that was like at the end of your build series on YouTube, and you had committed to starting a YouTube channel, right? And that was starting out with buying the Sunraider and doing the whole refresh on the Sunraider was the
I don't
impetus
know
for
that
it.
it was ever that like decided that we were going to start a YouTube channel. It was more of
Well, the whole idea was to document the Sunraider build. There wasn't any plans for after the Sunraider build. And
Yeah.
so, like, there was never any plans to do what we're doing now. We just
all of
thought
that's
that
organic.
the community around, like, the Toyota RVs is very tight and very supportive. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of information sharing. And so we did this and planned this with the whole idea of just kind of sharing as much as we could in mind.
Yeah, it was just really important to us that because all that information had so generously been given to us, we just wanted to make sure that that information didn't just like all come to us and then stay with us. It just felt like it was really important to put that information like back out into the world because the thing is like there's a ton of campers out there that could get a second lease on life and again, it all comes back to just like weirdly at the core of everything that we have ever done for me personally, as far as like life on the road is concerned, everything that we share for me comes back to trying to empower others to like go out into the world and live a life of their own creation. Again, doesn't have to look like what we're doing, but it all kind of just like goes back to that idea of like people should live a life that they're happy with.
Right.
Go figure that out for yourself.
And a lot of that information is applicable for any DIY build, you know, like it's not just specific to the Sunraider. You can apply a lot of that stuff to whatever you're working on.
Yeah. Because like the primary information that I was taking in for that build, like every step of the way was I was reading boat blogs, like full-time sailing boat blogs and people who were restoring boats, because
There was a lot of fiberglass work.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of people who were working on fiberglass campers at the time. So like all of that information had to come from a completely different industry. And so to me, it just felt like what I was looking for didn't exist. So it was important that like I made what I was looking for that we made what I was looking for at the time for that information, and put it back out. Because clearly there was a need. And those videos still, I get questions about Sunraider build stuff all the time, and people have asked us how much we would charge to do that for someone, and I said
There's not enough money in the world.
there is not enough money in this world to make me want to do that again.
But now you're like a Sunraider legend.
Did you see the electrical explanation for the Sunraider? Like we did a video just on
Did
the
we watch that
electrical.
one?
I don't know. I don't think we watched that one.
We didn't watch
Oh,
them
that's
all.
really too bad because it's a video after your own heart day.
I was like,
Oh, man.
Vince
All right,
gonna
after
tear
this.
thing to shreds.
I mean, if I have to hear the acronym AGM in that video, then I'm out.
it's only lithium, baby.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I've graduated. So at what point did you guys feel like that you were going to continue then making videos? Because were you still feeling like, you know, photography was our thing at the time, or had you started gradually
I felt like
shifting?
photography felt like it was our primary thing until like a year and a half ago.
Right. Yeah, it's hard for me to remember exactly what the chronological order is of our video archives, but from what I remember, it took me a long time to finish the Sunraider series because
It was a lot of work.
you know, like we had moved on at that point, and I was like, do I really want to spend my life rehashing these old videos? And eventually I did, just for the sake of sharing information. And I think that after that, we probably didn't do any videos again until we had been in we did a tour of the new truck, the new four-wheel camper.
Oh, we did a tour of Orlando before we sold it, like right there at the end.
Yeah, again, we did like building
For the sake of
camper.
documenting. But like after, because like we didn't record footage at all in Canada. I think that we were just so tired. Our candle was so burnt from so many different ends at that point.
But that's just not the kind of videos
in
we
the
were
Maritimes in Newfoundland, Labrador. You don't have videos from that.
Yeah, it's just not what we were using video for. We were only using video for tutorial type things.
Yeah, right.
So it was different, and it took until
COVID.
No, it was before COVID. We did a short little series about going to SEMA from Colorado, and that was the first time we dove into kind of like
A multi-travel video thing.
Yeah, and just kind of documenting our life more than anything like that.
Yeah, because I think in the chronological order of things, it goes from Lando tour more or less to like Roxanne tour.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. That sounds about right. I think that it has been a very just kind of like following impulse, which also could be used to describe our life. Just like I don't know, like what are we interested in? Like what? And I think that ultimately we find documenting vehicles to be painfully boring. I think that
they get views, but they're not fun to make.
They get really good views. It's like to me, it feels like a cheap shot.
Like, it's a cop out.
It is,
to get
like,
views.
Shots fired.
It's a job, right? Because at some point, if that's what you do, then you're just working another job.
No, and I think that that's great if you're passionate about it. But like at the end of the day, like making videos is hard. Like it's a lot of work. It's very time consuming. Like you want to be excited about what you are making. And
excited
so
about that paycheck.
And like the thing is like clearly I'm not motivated by money because I don't have much of it. But like I just like for us it was just like what is it that we are interested in doing? Like what is it that we are interested in capturing? And it feels like that has just kind of been how we have blindly fumbled around to doing what it is that we're doing now.
Both of you have design background, photography background, and Owen, specifically you were always working in motion graphics, which is very video centric to begin with.
Right.
So
I had a lot of background in video, not so much in the capture of live action footage, but just kind of in the graphics and effects of video. And I think that if you were to look at our YouTube catalog through that kind of time period,
the only good thing that has always been present in our videos.
Well, I think that if you looked at it, you would kind of get the feeling that we didn't really have a direction for the YouTube. We were kind of just like throwing a lot of stuff and seeing what stuck. And eventually we started to kind of figure out what we did like. And that's kind of where we're at now. It just took a while to find.
I'll tell you what I really love, and I talked to Marlene about this, is that when you go back to that first Vanagon tour video, you can tell there was a lot of thought put into getting each shot. Right, it wasn't just handheld, a guy, like shaking all over the place. Here's the upper cabinet. Here's that. You can tell there was thought put into shots, and it's not a very long video, but at the same time, short videos are arguably harder to make, right, for them to be informative. And also, the thing that I love the most is that MAK was the exact same person in that video.
So have I not changed?
I mean, like people think YouTube people are like, oh yeah, they're putting on a thing when they're on camera. They're doing this, or they're becoming this other person after they've been on YouTube for a while. But it is really refreshing going back to the video and be like, that is the same person that we're talking to tomorrow.
Yeah, it is interesting because I do think that a lot of people do kind of like have a different persona. I certainly like am not exactly myself, like, and I think that comes with comfort too. I'm just not that comfortable in front of the camera, and I think that MAK is a natural.
Max, I cannot relate. I don't know what you're talking about.
And so I think that she's always like had that ability to just be naturally herself, effortlessly.
Well, I feel like the thing is like, I know the person who's on the other side of the camera for, and like that's the person that I am communicating with, not the camera. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, sorry, can't relate.
Yeah, whenever there's a camera on me, I instantly forget what I'm talking about, and I just like blank.
That's how I am too.
Yeah.
I just like don't. The funny thing is like I just don't think. Like it just is pure stream of consciousness.
I mean, some of those, shots almost felt like you knew exactly what to say before it came out of your mouth, right?
Yeah.
It's like, these are jokes that she wrote, and then now she's saying them.
It blows my mind with how natural and effortless, and just like how quick-witted she can be, just like spontaneously.
You're so sweet.
Valentine's Day, sweet words. Look at him.
No, that's very sweet. Yeah, I don't know. It's been really interesting because like obviously we've kind of gotten away from. We are the subjects of our videos, but like we don't talk to camera much.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. Like for me, I think that I have come to realize that if I am telling a bigger story, I almost never have anything intelligent to add in the moment. I'm very much a like take it all in ingest it, reflect on it, come back to it, because we do have some like talking to camera stuff that just inherently gets recorded, but it's not talking to camera, it's like talking to Owen like behind the camera or whatever. But I just like don't use it because it's never informed by the whole experience. And so we've kind of gotten away from that. But I look forward to getting back to that in a different medium maybe, because I think that, you know, I'm kind of quietly working on a project where I can do that a little bit more readily, because I really do enjoy being in front of the camera, but that's also like not what I want to make every day. I like long form storytelling. I like being able to have insight and to be able to slowly parse out the moral of a story. And I can't stand in front of, you know, some pretty place in Baja and like have all of this foresight for things. Like I just can't do that. So just like obviously the nature of what we have made has greatly changed over time. But
at what point do you feel like that your YouTube content has evolved to this current format? Because I know that you talked about this SEMA short series is kind of something that you made that was the first travel, you know, video. When did you?
Okay, this is the first time that I've actually considered that to be ultimately a part of the evolution, because like to me it always started with COVID.
Okay.
Like what we started making around that time. But I think that you're right. That is the first.
It's the first one.
First travel content.
Yeah, we did and then after that we tried like a day in the life, and then we did like
I did a
few
traveling
things,
solo video.
a few things here and there, just kind of dabbling in it. And then when COVID happened and that summer when we went out and traveled, we were just kind of like, at that point we had started to film things with
It starts a little bit before that. While we were in lockdown, so we were staying with our friends Carissa and Lindbergh. They're gone dirtin' on the internet. We were staying with them in their backyard, and it felt like such, you know, I don't think it was lost on any of us that we were living through a historically important time. Obviously, we didn't know the nature of what that was, or like why it was important, or how big or profoundly impactful that time would have been on like ultimately our lives after that. But it just felt like such a strange and unique time. And Owen and I lost all of our work when COVID hit. We had like a year's worth of forecasted projects. You know, it was going to be a little photography, a little bit of video, but primarily a lot of design work. And we lost all of our clients. I had been wanting, not all of our clients, but just like all of our work. And
most of your income at that point then.
Yeah, just like it was gone overnight. And I think that was a very terrifying experience, but to be in an environment with just two other people, like it was emotionally and mentally trying. It was scary and confusing, and we didn't have anything else going on. So it was just like, well, why don't we just like take a little bit of time to capture this? Because if nothing else, I think it's going to be important to us to have just like a little time capsule from this time. And so we recorded a video. It was like a day in the life of being in quarantine at Carissa and Lindbergh's house. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of wanted to like meditate on what that process had been. And I think it was the first time that I wrote a video, like sat down, put together like a video by myself, I guess.
Yeah, up to that point, I think I was doing the writing and MAK was just doing the VO.
Mm-hmm. So I decided that I kind of wanted to like tackle that, and I really enjoyed the process. And I also realized that I had a fair number of like strong instincts despite the fact that I had never done that before. And I really enjoyed it. I just really loved the idea of telling this bigger story. And I think that for me, it was like kind of a way that I was processing everything that was happening. It just like made me realize like how much it forced me to think about what was going on and how I wanted to deal with it. And so when we ultimately were able to leave quarantine and we decided to try to travel that summer, just to do our best, we decided to, you know, link arms with some friends who also travel full time, and we were going to try. None of us had a ton of resources that we could carry at any one given time, and it had been very clear how important it was to have like an emotional and mental support system. So we all decided just to travel together that summer because, again, all of us had lost all of our work. So none of us had to be anywhere at any particular time. It was just this like really unique period in time where no one had any commitments. And so it just felt like, it just felt like a really important time to capture. And then we didn't know what we were going to do with it. And then after the summer, we realized that we had potentially many, many episodes worth of footage to put together into something. And then that was the first time we approached sponsors about like, hey, we've got this idea. I know we've never done this before. Do you want to like pitch some money our way so we can just spend the time to put this together into something? And that was our first series, and that was Summer Adrift.
So you had shot everything for the series before you decided that you were going to create a series.
Oh, yeah, it was all over by then. Yeah, it was, I want to say it was like
that fall or something.
I mean, that's like, that's probably one of the series with the most episodes, right?
It is the most. I think it has
16 episodes.
And if you were to put them like front to back all the way through, we're probably talking about 3-4 hours of stuff.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can't ever do that again.
Was that too much? I mean,
it was too much.
You don't want to do that again.
Alaska was also too much. We can never make a series that big again. That series, Alaska in particular, like nearly killed us.
Is that from the fact that you just couldn't stop shooting content? Like you just ended up with too much content?
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that maybe we were that great at paring down. You know, I think that ultimately, like, you could shoot as much or as little and then decide to make as many or as few videos as you want. But I think that at the end of the day, again, I'm still glad we did it because I think it was important to hit all over the map. But now we know, like, that end of the spectrum is unsustainable financially, mentally, emotionally. I don't think that the viewership carries through. And in fact, we have since heard from an ad agency who has done actual research on this, and 5 episodes, 20 minutes or less, that's what people have a bandwidth for.
Interesting.
But that's just like a like we did 8 this past series.
I mean, it's
8 was great.
It's a matter of what the audience is, right? Like your most ardent subscribers will never get enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But we're talking about the 80-20 rule. 80% of them only want to see 5, and they want to be able to get through it in a reasonable amount of time to have some kind of closure so they can move on to something else. I mean, it's kind of how TV has become too. Now TV series are much shorter.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's been kind of interesting, and like ultimately, I don't think the evolution is clearly not over. And like I can tell you, like we're in the midst of an evolution right now in the way that we're making. Every single time now, when I sit down to write, because I now have kind of like a couple years of experience at this rate, which is kind of wild to say because I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. But I think that it's really been fun to figure out how to hone in the process. I really enjoy perfecting how we work and seeing how that ultimately like ends up representing itself in the finished product.
You had talked about, I think last year when we were hanging out, you had talked about that you had revamped the way you write.
And I've done it again this week.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the evolution? Like, you don't have to go into any detail that you're not comfortable sharing, but kind of tell us about how did you do it at the beginning, why that didn't work, and what was the last shift that made it work better, and then this week, what happened?
What are we doing now? Yeah. Okay. So this is going to give you like some real deep insight into how MAK thinks. Okay. So writing the Alaska series, as I mentioned, nearly killed us. Killed each of us separately and together from like a whole bunch of different perspectives.
But people love that series though, right?
Yeah.
Is that one of your more popular ones?
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the first one that captured a larger audience.
Yeah. And I think that when people hear that, they're like, oh, but I love it. And I'm like, not saying that I am not like, I still feel like that series slaps. I feel like we've progressed pretty far from there. You know, I can see notable improvement. That's great. But I'm still super proud of what we made. And it was just a period of time where I felt the most beat up I had ever felt in my entire life from work, but also felt the most inspired I had ever felt from work. So it was just this like weird catch-22 where it was like something is working, but there's also a lot that's not working.
It's a big learning experience. Right?
It is much like so much. We just, so to give you a little bit of insight, we realized that we were working in a massive financial deficit. We were actively losing like a catastrophic amount of money, like spending the amount of time that we did making each of these episodes. So that's a really natural segue into telling you that it would take me almost 2 weeks to write a single episode because I would get in front of my computer, and because I'm not trained in this, just kind of figuring it out as I go, I have had some pretty chronic issues with imposter syndrome in the past, and it would rear its ugly head every single time I would sit down in front of the computer to write. And I would sit there all day, stare at a blank sheet of paper on my screen, and just go through all of the reasons why I shouldn't be doing what I was doing, and that I wasn't qualified. What makes me think that I have the ability to do this? Like, it was a dark time. And I think that ultimately that stretched into multiple facets of life. And I think that it didn't dawn on me until after that series was over that I have the power to change how I go about thinking about work, how I actually execute it, because at the end of the day, as long as the finished product goes out the door, it doesn't matter how it gets made. So when I sat down to start writing A Long Time Coming, which is our Midwest series, I went into it with the objective of finding a better way, because I knew that I loved the finished product. I knew I loved storytelling. I love everything about it, but I hated writing, because it just felt like a time where I would rip myself limb for limb. And so I decided to sit down, and I was just like, okay, what can I do right now to just like start getting stuff on the paper? So instead of just like free form, going through the footage, writing, like, so I was just bouncing between, that was what I was doing originally, bouncing between footage and a blank piece of paper. I wasn't gathering any notes. I wasn't like making an outline for what I wanted. So I was just kind of like writing every episode from beginning to end, next episode, beginning to end, next episode, beginning to end. So then when A Long Time Coming came, it was like, okay, what is the moral of the story I'm trying to tell for this series? Great. This is the moral of the series. What plot points do I need to hit across the series to ultimately get me at that finishing point, the payoff of the series? And so Owen and I started sitting down before I would write, and we would kind of gather all of these ideas that we had, like things that came up for us that kind of ultimately led to where we were at the end of the series. And I would get all of those things in one place. So all of those notes between us, our experiences, what we're wanting ultimately the story to tell for the series. Then I would go into my notes. I would gather all of my notes from those periods of time, and I would start to break it out into episodes. So it would be like, okay, in this episode, I need to hit one plot point to start moving the needle towards the moral of the story. And I would go through my list and I'd be like, okay, I have footage where I can tell this plot point. Great. It's going to be roughly here in the middle of the episode. So it's just kind of, I guess the best way to like put it, it felt like I just started I was like writing this like corn on the cob. Like you do a pass, you get a little bit more clarity. You do another pass, you get a little bit more. And so then now what I'm doing is I have started breaking, so I'm working on a single video that is a short mini doc, if you will. And now I'm breaking it into scenes. And before the scene with like my notes and everything, I write, what is the point of the scene? Like, how is this getting us closer to this finish? And all of these notes are real. Nobody ever sees them except for me, Owen, and the editor. But it's important that everybody's on the same page about, like, what is the purpose of this footage? Like, what is this serving? What does it need to do to move us closer to this finished result? And so really and truly, it's just a matter of like gathering an insane amount of notes and then like stream of consciousness ideas for like things that could be said. And then when you go to sit down and write, you have all of these details at your disposal, and it's super easy to write because it's all right there in one place, and then it comes really naturally. So it's just this kind of like, do a pass, get a little more, do a pass, get a little more clarity until you are ultimately writing. But I think that just like getting your notes, getting your ideas clear, and then kind of tracking them on the storyline is the best way for me personally to write. And it's really fun to kind of like gather all these ideas, put them in one place, and then grow a story out of it.
What do you call this type of writing?
I have no idea.
I mean, but the type of content you guys make are sort of documentary style filmmaking, because you're not going out there with the script already written before you shoot, right? You're going out there shooting first.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're coming back with what you have and seeing what story can I make from what we've shot.
Right, precisely.
Yeah, and it's really funny because a lot of times, like, we have to gather, no, not a lot of times, we always have to gather funding to ensure that we can, like, pay and afford to make something.
Yeah.
And so we have to put these pitches, we're like, oh, we're going to this area, and this is the moral of what we think the story will be.
Right.
And then
So
there's
you have
always
to
a
have
note, it's
something
like,
ahead
this
of time.
is
Subject to change.
because, like, at the end of the day, it's important to us that we're telling the story of what actually happened.
Okay. Because we
and
talked
the
about this
lessons
a
that
little
we're
bit with a
Yeah.
long time coming, that you were hoping that there was a payoff at Isle Royal.
Well, the good
that had to
news
change.
is, no matter what, it was going to be a payoff because
Yeah, right. But it was different than you had imagined.
Yeah, it was this destination that we had been looking forward to. We had always wanted to go. It was like this big dream destination, and then to get there and realize, like, low key, like, couple days worth of depression getting there and realizing that that experience was not playing out how you envisioned. I was just like, am I allowed to swear?
Yes.
I mean,
I was
kids
just like,
are not going to be listening to this.
yeah, it's just like, because we had this idea going into, and we're like, oh, it's going to be great. But like, ultimately, what we got out of it was so much better than that. Like,
Yeah.
you can have all of these grand ideas, and that's great and all, but like, rarely is it ever going to pan out that way. And so it's not like what you get, it's how you respond to these experiences that aren't as you planned that really makes the experience. So
Yeah, I think it's important with these types of experiences, and it's kind of like a dangerous road to plan ahead and like have an idea of what you want the moral and story to be ahead of time. It's a dangerous thing because if you aren't open-minded to changing that or
it could really color your
like
experience.
being able
Yeah.
to adapt on the fly, then all of a sudden
It'll show on camera.
and you could be like really bummed out because it's not what you wanted.
Right.
So you have to like, it's a weird balance of like going in with certain expectations, but also being willing to completely drop them.
So the challenge, I guess, now is this chicken or the egg kind of thing when it comes to funding. Like, how do you get funding without a story that you can present and pitch, but then how do you get them to fund you, knowing that they may not get exactly what they paid for?
You're asking all of the questions that I ask myself every single time we pitch a series.
Well, I think that the important thing that we have going for us now is a portfolio of previous work that just goes like, this didn't exactly pan out how we expected it to, but we still ended up with a product that I think everyone is happy
And the
with.
client was happy.
The great,
so you'll
the
be
great
happy
news
with
is
yours.
everybody seems to always be stoked. And I think that what's really different about us is like the way that sponsors are involved in what we make. Because like, they aren't really.
No.
They decide to help fund our project. There's usually like 2 tiers worth of involvement that they can get in on the project. But really and truly, what it encompasses is they get their logo in front of our video, and that's about it.
I mean,
But
at the end of the day,
really-
it's eyeballs on their brand, right?
Yeah, and we only work with we love to work with people that are very organically omnipresent in our life, because it's a very
Right. It's easy to promote them.
it's easy to promote, because like we love them, they take really great care of us, we love what
Yeah.
they have, it makes what we do possible. You know, it's really easy, but also I'm not here to sell anybody on anything. I think that we're here to sell people on the idea of going out into the world and having these experiences, and you know, along the way they will need some gear, and I would hope that they would see that we've had a great experience with those things. So for us, it's like a little bit, yeah, like we can't ask for crazy amounts of money like some people can, because we are not giving them as much
You
freedom.
got to
like
give up. You got to give up more to get more.
and we're not willing to
Yeah.
do that with our personal work, because I think it's really important that it remains true to what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
We're not trying to like pull the wool over anyone's eyes, our brand partners or the viewers, but I don't know. I think that we feel really lucky to be in the position that we're in. It's never lost on us, and we're very thankful that the brands that we work with are incredibly trusting of us when we're like, yeah, like this is our idea, but like, as you know, like it probably won't ultimately be this. But the cool thing was with the Baja series was I gave them a moral of the story that I knew would not change, but I knew that that wouldn't be the only focus of the series, because our work greatly deals with the mental and emotional growth that comes from travel. But like the moral that I pitched for that one was international travel for those who are in the United States is extremely accessible if you're willing to have an open mind and go to Mexico. And so like that was kind of the moral that I knew would be able to remain throughout the series. But then I knew that I would be mixing in this bigger idea that Owen and I are preparing to go international. And this was kind of us like testing those waters close to home in an accessible way.
How do you feel about your preparation for international travel at this point?
Fantastic segue. I see what you did there. So I'm going to be honest. It's funny because there's other people who are also planning to do the Pan Am right now that we have been in communication with. And it's really funny to see the spectrum of the level of planning that people
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. We're on
and I
the
think-
we're on the low end of that spectrum.
Okay, so I was going to say, I have a feeling that we sit in the same position as you all.
I think that we try and cover the big important things like shipping the vehicle,
Big broad strokes.
but
Yeah.
we usually leave the finer details for spontaneity. You know, there's like some big things like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to Patagonia, but it's a
Yeah.
big place.
People keep asking about our route, and we're like, I don't know.
You can't.
That direction.
Yeah. We talk to a lot of people too that are chronic over planners.
Oh,
And I
interesting.
think it feels like that they're just setting themselves up for disappointment. And maybe it's not unlike having expectations for a trip that you may shoot a series for, like having Isle Royal to be a disappointment, because you had anticipated a certain outcome. And also just with border crossings, we know that people that are chronically over planning, having to make sure everything is documented, planned. Sure, you want to have a certain level of that, but at the same time, there is such thing as being over prepared for a border, because you psych yourself out at what things can go wrong that will probably not go wrong. And chances are things will go smoother than these people planned, but they go into it with such trepidation because they overplanned.
It's interesting because like I have wondered what because like I am very familiar with the type of person that you are describing, and I have spent a fair bit of time like really trying to figure out like what the difference is and like why our approaches are so different. First of all, different strokes for different folks. Obviously, that's like clear and cut thing. But the other thing is, at this rate, we've been on the road for a long time. So have you all. This is what life looks like for us. There are so many unknowns all the time, and we are so comfortable with like allowing those to be there because we have lived with them for so long. I think that when people are preparing for a big international trip, if they're going from a home environment to doing the Pan Am, there is just this level of discomfort with the unknown, and that is completely natural. We have just already worked through that. Like that is just like not really a thing for us anymore. Because like the really and truly like what is happening is we're going to do exactly what we do here, the way we do it here over there. That's the only difference. We're doing it in just a different country. So like, yeah, there's some important like shipping the vehicle, border crossings, but like the other thing is like we have nothing but 8 years of experience in knowing that like we can overcome a lot of really challenging setbacks. And we are just the type of people that like when those things rear their ugly head, we'll deal with them. But I'm not going to spend my life worrying about them now because it's not going to change the outcome ultimately. It's just like you deal with them as they come and then we move on.
And I think not doing this in a Sunraider or Vanagon is a big head start compared to some of these other obstacles that you guys have had to overcome.
Definitely some peace of mind.
Yeah, right.
But we just like have our ways of traveling. Like we just have been doing this for a long time, and so we're just doing that over there. It's like it feels kind of simple to me, but I do understand it's a big difference, and maybe we should act like it a little bit more.
I mean, you're still 6+ months from heading out, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you were to get into too much nitty-gritty details, it's too early. Things will change.
Yeah.
If nothing
Also,
else,
we're not sure what we're doing like tomorrow, let alone like what's happening in 6 months.
Exactly. Right. Did I jump on your questions?
Yeah, you took my question. That's fine. I'm used to it.
Yeah.
But you did have some like rapid fire questions for the end here. I know.
Rapid fire.
They're not
Well,
necessarily
not
rapid fire.
But Dan had some creative questions.
Okay.
These are questions that hopefully that people haven't asked you a million times, at least not in this particular format.
Okay.
Because we're longtime travelers,
Yes.
so we know some of these questions are not, there's no answers for them. But if phrased slightly differently, then it could be interesting, right?
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm so curious.
So the original form of this question is like, where is your favorite place? But we know that doesn't exist.
Right.
So what I want to know is if you were to be able to pick 3 places, once your traveling days are done, you could pick 3 places to hop from every year. What would those 3 places be?
Baja for sure. Baja forever and always. I also really like Tofino, which is Vancouver Island, cute surf town.
Okay, winter, summer.
Yeah, I would probably not say Tofino. I'd probably just go up to Alaska.
Yeah, he's right.
And then it would probably
We're in Alaska. Alaska is really big.
I really like Homer.
Homer. I love Homer.
And Juneau. Juneau's amazing. Just a little bit
It's a little
difficult. Yeah, for
Yeah.
the sake of being landlocked.
Yeah, I would say probably that's a tough one, but Homer feels solid.
Yeah.
I do love the sandstone deserts of Utah. I was going to say Newfoundland, but Newfoundland feels slightly redundant with Alaska.
I would say
Not completely the same, but to
Yeah.
get more variety.
Escalante, Utah. Let's put that as the third one.
Okay. You actually own a piece of land in each of these places. What do you put
Yeah,
on them?
I would. Oh, what are we putting on it?
Yeah, what are you putting on these 3 plots of land?
I would love an A-frame in Alaska.
Okay. right?
I think that in Baja, you have to go with just like a traditional kind of brutalist cement slash like
Yeah.
stucco
But a palapa,
something.
a big palapa
You need a
next to it.
palapa.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Gotta have
okay.
the palapa for the friends passing through town.
Yeah.
And then I think in Utah, I would love to put kind of like there. I can actually tell you the exact company name. We hope to one day own. They're called backcountry cabins. It's a environmentally sustainable, kind of like build on site cabin. But I would say that they have like a Nordic, kind of like a
It's
Nordic.
like a kit. They sell you a kit, or is it a prefab, or?
It's a prefab. They build
Prefab.
it there. They build the pieces there. Then they put it up. They're really beautiful, and then you get to finish them out. We've already got like a floor plan picked out.
Wow.
So yeah, that's something that we really do hope to own someday.
So that's
I
for
think it would
Utah.
I think it would be really beautiful in Utah because they're black primarily. I think the black up against the red
Red rocks.
Yeah.
rock would be
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Escalante. We got a great photo of Luca in Escalante. We'll send you another time.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see. If the four of us were to start a business, what would we do?
I feel like I have so many
It
ideas.
can't. Okay, hold on. Let me add a little addendum to that. It can't be something that we already do.
So we can't open a French fry stand on a remote beach in Baja.
Okay, yeah. All right. That's why we have a big palapa.
We
got a big palapa
somewhere
for
near
this.
Cabo. I feel like that's what we're. Is that what we're doing? I think that's what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Yeah,
I think you nailed it.
I think so. Right. Onion rings.
And onion rings,
Onion
yes.
rings. Oh, we'll have to do it at Nine Palms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like a fry shack of some description.
And we're gonna buy out the entire inventory of Costco.
Yes. I can see it in our future.
Cool. I like that.
Thank you.
Who inspires your current work and who inspires your current travels? Present company excluded.
Fantastic question. I feel like even though present company is not included, I do feel like it needs to be publicly known that the two of you and all of you, the 5+ cats, have been a big inspiration for us for a really long time.
Well, I know that Twin is a big inspiration for Boo. So
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely.
I think it's more like Toby.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay. All right.
She a
Well,
wild
I'm not
child.
going to tell Twin that because she's kind of sitting on her high horse right now.
But, I think that our immediate friend group is always a huge inspiration to us. We're very lucky that our immediate friend group of Carissa and Limburg of Gone Dirtin, Chase and Amy of Tight Loops Fly, and then Peter and Truthy of Holiday at Sea, they're all just like really incredibly creative people. Most of us work in the art and media worlds, everybody except for Peter, actually. But like, sorry, Peter. But like, they're incredibly accomplished travelers in their own right. They did the Pan Am in a Volkswagen Vanagon. Just like accomplished travelers, very talented, creative people. And it's always very, very special to share kind of what we have in the works, to get feedback and insight from each other. Aside from that, I'm trying to think like outside inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, I take a lot of inspiration from different illustrators and designers because, I kind of live and work in that world. And it's always something I'm thinking about for our series and videos is like, what kind of graphics can we make and things like that. So,
Yeah, because if people don't know this, you guys work with designers, illustrators for a lot of your intros, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, it all started in the Alaska series where a former coworker, before we left on the road, we had always had this idea to work together.
On a passion project.
And that kind of felt like the first time, like we were never able to just like make time to do something that wasn't paid. And so we finally had some money that I could throw at him to like help illustrate the stuff, even though it wasn't like a ton. And I think that kind of like set us down this path of like committing to trying to make a nice intro series every single time and working with different designers and playing with different styles and things like that. So I think that I still take a lot of inspiration from the design world outside of, travel and things like
Yeah.
that. I think that anyone that's got those kinds of skills that I don't have, it really inspires me and it gets me excited to work with them.
And I feel like we can't move past this phase. Before we get to that, I watch a lot of storytelling, like technical breakdowns of modern movies. And I really enjoy understanding the mechanics of what makes really good storytelling. That's something that's super inspiring to me. It's something that I really seek out. It's something that I try to, do the best to implement into our work. Because I think that sometimes documentarian pieces, I think that maybe this is a little bit of a hot take, but I feel like sometimes like documentarian pieces lack like really deep quality storytelling because they're trying to like tell us. Like a lot of times you just have these pieces that you have and you don't get to choose like what media you have at your disposal to tell these stories. But I feel like there's ways to do it. You just have to be kind of creative with it. So that's like my personal vendetta is to bring just like really impactful, thought out storytelling and storytelling mechanics into documentarian pieces. But my biggest personal inspiration is both my parents and my grandparents. My grandparents were very prolific travelers, very talented photographer. Whoa. Very talented photographers. I don't know what happened there. And I have always been inspired by their travels for as long as I can remember. But I very recently have started diving into, I have become the caretaker of their entire body of photos. And it's been really cool to see.
I feel like that
where it
needs
comes
its own
from.
Instagram account.
It's funny that you say that. I've kind of thought about that, but like also I need to hire help. I can barely post on our own Instagram page every day. But I just have found like the most incredible photos of the most incredible remote places and the time in which like the era in which they were traveling to these places is pretty remarkable. They were really ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And I've always taken so much inspiration from them. And I look forward to one day telling their story in some way because I do intend to.
So I think people don't appreciate how much effort it was to do it back then.
Yeah.
Because how much easier it is to do all this stuff now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just like the way that they ingested the world and then the way that it was kind of passed down to me, I also found to be very inspiring. It was like very important to them to like instill the idea that we're citizens of the world, less so than one country. And it's our duty to understand that everybody operates differently and our differences are something to be celebrated. I think that idea also was just really ahead of their time. And I just think that they were doing something really beautiful and capturing beautiful images, meeting a lot of really lovely people that they're still in contact with to this day all over the world.
Cool. Your grandparents are still around.
They are.
Yeah?
They are. I'm very lucky. Yeah. So it's really cool they actually don't, there's unfortunately some dementia and Alzheimer's in the family. And so they're definitely kind of going through that themselves. Mm-hmm. And I will be sharing what I'm doing with them in some way, shape, or form at some point. I just kind of want to get it to a point where I want to be able to present a body of their work back to themselves.
Do you feel like they're still together enough to get them on camera for some interviews? No?
No.
It's too hard.
Sadly, that was something that I was planning on doing when I went home for the holidays this year. And unfortunately, my grandmother had a mental break of some description. We think it was
Stroke.
A series of strokes.
Or seizures.
Seizures. Yeah, I can never remember if it was strokes or seizures, but I think it was seizures.
That's rough.
That took a great deal of her ability to communicate for any extended period of time. And of course, this was like 2 months before the holidays.
Were you close with them as a kid?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Definitely.
Obviously.
Despite being a
too.
military family and being on the move all the time, I feel like we were as close as could possibly be. They were
Yeah.
in our lives. They always came. Every place we moved to, they came to. So yeah, we were super close, and I feel lucky to, as the oldest grandchild, I have the biggest, like, I would say that I have the best relationship with them and have probably gleaned the most from my relationship with them. I do, it goes without saying that I have some regret that I didn't kind of come to this realization that I wanted to capture them sooner, because I feel like I just missed my opportunity.
Yeah, I have similar regrets about my grandparents. They have a lifetime of stories that we'll just never know.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
As somebody who's actively trying to choke that one down.
Yeah, I feel you.
But I feel lucky to have the photos that I do. So all is not lost.
Would you ever create anything that's fictional narrative?
I cannot tell you how badly I want to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like there is not enough time.
Yeah.
Like
There's
on,
too much documentary
on
stuff
planet
to work.
Earth for me.
I mean, you would have to consciously switch and not put your effort into the stuff that you're doing now.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the biggest thing like holding me back right now is honestly funding. It will always be funding. I have an idea for a screenplay that I would really like to write, and it's a story based on our first couple of weeks on the road that I think would be really fun to do, kind of like indie film, but like actors, actresses. I think it would be really fun. I really have an aspiration to write and work with an animator to do a full animated short. Obviously you would be involved in that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have a lot of goals.
It was like right here.
I also really want to do a music video. I really love music videos. I think that the type of storytelling that's employed in music videos is really cool, and I'm a really big fan. I have so many ideas and just not enough time or money to make them all at the moment.
All right, guys, throw some money in. We gotta start a GoFundMe or something.
Yeah, well, we're working on something that hopefully will. I just want to make money so I can spend it making other things.
Well, do you guys have any near-term projects that you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I think
Something
that
you
we
wanna
only have one that we can legally talk about.
Okay.
And it is our build series.
Yes.
This is your turn.
Yeah, we're just currently working on the editing of a 2-part build series, just kind of going into the whys and the mechanics of how we ended up with the Jolene. And so, yeah, we'll kind of dive into the details because the tour video is really more of just the what it is. And
Yeah.
And
So this
the
is a little bit of a
decision
throwback to the old build series of Sunraider. Right? This is the modern version.
It's going to be way more
A
professional
refresh.
looking though.
Yeah. So it'll be a slightly different format from any of our other videos because it'll be more interview-based, driving it rather than voiceover and things like that. So it'll be a little bit different, just playing with different formats. And that's what we got right now. And
When can we expect something like that?
No pressure.
probably 2025.
At the rate in which we work. The title sequence for that is going to be an undertaking for Owen. However, there is a second part that I'm not going to quite talk about yet, that we are going to do with that title sequence. So anyways, it's going to be a little bit of an undertaking, but it will. I would hope like in a month or so that will start rolling out.
Cool.
We're just
Very
on a little
exciting.
bit of a break because of the eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those damn eyeballs.
Soon.
Yeah. But I would
think
say
that's
that's
it.
the long and the short of what we can legally talk about at this time.
Yeah. Well, maybe if we had some margaritas and some arm twisting, we could have gotten you to say more. Some
I'm
onion
really
rings and some
hoping-
French fries.
Yeah, I'm hoping really soon though we'll be able to like announce some of these other things that we have going on.
Well, we're ready for it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for having us. It was nice seeing you. Obviously, I
Yeah.
wish that we could do this in person, but this is good too.
And thank you for sharing your story, and it's fun to get to know more details on top of what we already know about you guys and share with everybody.
Oh, thanks, guys. It's an honor. It's an honor. But hopefully we can see you guys again sometime real soon in person.
We love that.
Yeah. It's anything can happen. Marlene doesn't want to fly back again, but if we have to, we have to.
I like to think and hope that we will see you in the Southern Hemisphere.
I think if we were within 1,000 miles of each other, we would make it happen.
We'll make it happen.
I see you guys in the water surfing with penguins around you, and I'm better at taking video footage now, so a little bit better.
I mean, if we can make that dream a reality, I would die on sight of
there's people surfing with penguins that we saw.
Penguin is not on the board, so don't get too excited.
Okay, right. No, this is not like the animated Surfside sequel.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation we had.
Is your voice a little sore, Dan?
Surprisingly, this time I kind of like this format because I don't have to do nearly as much talking. And if you just when you go through the editing process of seeing how this conversation went, we recorded their track and our track separately, and you can see that there's big blocks of time where I didn't have to say anything, which is kind of nice. But I think that's the point of the series, is that we want to hear other people's voices. We want to hear how they approach the same problems, the same questions that we have, and how do we somehow, in a roundabout way, more often than not, come to the same conclusion. So, and that's why we have so much in common with other people like MAK and Owen who traveled the way we do. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have ideas for podcast episodes, or if you guys have people that you'd like us to talk to in this interview podcast series, feel free to email us at podcast@freelyroaming.com. We would love to create more content like this for you guys and talk to the people that you've been dying to hear from.
Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.